Hi, this is Melissa with the Stamping Ninja. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a beautiful purple and white card for you. This card was actually made for a Stampin' Fancy Friday February challenge where we were to use any shade of purple that we wanted. So for this card, I am using two stamp sets, mainly the Delightful Wishes stamp set and coordinating dies, but I'm also using one stamp from the Coneflower celebrations, and that is this little splatter stamp down here. So we're going to be using both of those. Now, everything that I've used for this card is listed below, and the measurements are also down there as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started and put it together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my card base here. This is a piece of basic white thick cardstock, and it measures 5.5 by 8.5 and is scored at 4 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that. I'm going to burnish that score line here with my bone folder. Get it nice and crisp so that it lays flat. And I usually will do the inside first, but for this one I left it blank on purpose because of the sentiment wishing you well could mean many different things. So I didn't want to just limit it to maybe somebody that's in the hospital or something like that. So feel free to put any sentiment that you want on the inside. All right, next I am going to put a layer on here that is in Gorgeous Grape, and the Gorgeous Grape measures 5 by 3 3/4. And I did that so that I would have a large border around it instead of a regular border that you usually see, which is when you put a 5 1/4 by 4 piece on. So I wanted a little bit more white showing. So I'm putting this on there so that there's equal spacing all the way around. And then I'm done with that part for a while. So I'm going to set this card to the side so that I don't get ink on it, and so I can get it out of my way. And then next I'm going to take a piece of basic white that measures 4 7/8 by 3 5/8, and we are going to color on it. First, I don't want to get ink on my background here. I'm trying out a new background, so I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper, put underneath my cardstock there, and then I'm going to grab two ink pads. One is Highland Heather and the other is Gorgeous Grape. So we're going to be using both of these colors on the card. Now I'm using a blending brush, and this one happens to be one of the smaller ones. I like the smaller ones better, but you can use a large one if you need to. Just going to get some of that ink out of here. As you can see, I label mine purple. So purple is the only thing that I use with this one. And then I periodically wash them out. So after this card, I'll probably wash that out. All right, I'm going to start with Highland Heather. It is the lighter color of the two purples. So I like to start with my light and work towards the dark. So I'm going to kind of add some ink here to my blending brush. And then whenever I use a blending brush, I like to always just start on my scrap paper, right? There's always like a big blob, so just want to wipe that off. And then I'm just going to make little circles here across the middle of my cardstock. And I'm only going to do about 2 inches here in the middle. So I'm leaving space up here that's white, and I'm leaving space down here that's white. So just little circles. I'm going to get a little bit more ink there. I'll wipe it off a little bit. Put a little bit more down. Doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. So that is it for my Highland Heather. Now I'm going to switch to my Gorgeous Grape. And since we're going from light color to dark color, I don't need to even wipe off any ink. I'm just going to go straight onto my ink pad here. Now you wouldn't want to do that the other way. You don't want to go dark to light. Then you'll have dark ink all over your light ink pad. Wipe off a little bit there. And then I'm going to put some darker on top. And it's just kind of random. I don't want to cover all the areas where I put the light down, because then there would be no need to put the light down because you wouldn't see it. So I'm just doing kind of little areas of darkness. Little spot there. So I have like more dark here, more here, just kind of random. And then that's it. That's all there is for the purple. It's going to be covered, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just want a nice little purple background there. All right, so we're done with this one. Going to just set it up there for now because we'll come back to that. Get that out of my way. First, we're going to do some more stamping. So I put down there you need some scrap basic white for stamping and die cutting. I have a couple pieces here. Doesn't matter how big your piece is, just as long as you can fit everything on there. I'm going to start with my word here, wishing. Now, I'm going to show you a little secret. Get that out of the way since I don't need that. Prior to me putting it on this block, sometimes when you have large sentiments and you have a die cut here that cuts them out and it's nice and skinny, it doesn't necessarily line up every time like you want it to, and you don't get this even spacing all the way around it. So the trick for that is you take your die and then you take your stamp and line it up on top. It should sit in there nice and even to where it goes. It lines up perfectly because you can see through it. And then once you get it lined up with your die, you set it down and put your block on top. So now you got to peel the die off. So now I know when I go to cut this word out, it's going to line up perfectly with my die. So that's my little trick for that. All right, we're going to use Gorgeous Grape for our sentiment. So I'm going to ink that up real well. Such a big block here. Trying to do it without getting ink everywhere. And I'm going to stamp that like so. And then I'm going to set this to the side because I like to do all my stamping first. But I'm going to close up the Gorgeous Grape and I'm going to grab my Highland Heather Ink Pad. And then my other piece of basic white scrap here, I'm going to stamp the flowers. So the stamps, the flower stamps, there's two of them. One is the background and it is kind of flat and smooth, and the other one is the detailed one. So we're not going to use the detailed. That one's going to be for our embossing. We're going to use the flat side, the background one, if you will. So we're going to ink that up in Highland Heather and stamp on our basic white, and then we're going to do it again because we need two sets. Whoop, a little hair there. And I'm putting it next to it, but I want to make sure that I have room for my dies. So you don't want it right up against them because when you put the dies around it, it has a little border. You want to make sure you don't cut into your flowers. All right, so that is it for that part. And now we're going to heat emboss. So I'm going to grab my little tray that I like to use. I have everything here just in one spot. I keep a piece of printer paper in it, so that way whenever I spill powder, I can just pick it up and dump it back in or whatever I need to do here. And then my little containers, these are just from IKEA. So I have the gold in this one. And make sure you can still see the card there. All right, so I am going to start with that piece that we did the purple background on, this one right here. And I'm gonna grab my embossing buddy. Mine's getting a little old, so it's just kind of like sleek powder everywhere. I rub that really well. So I can make sure that my embossing powder only goes where I want it. And then for this one, I'm going to use that splatter background from the Coneflower celebrations. So that's what we're going to use on the background here. And I just have it going lengthwise. So I'm going to ink that up real well. I'm going to actually stamp twice. So I'm putting it kind of diagonal right in the middle of that purple. Stamping, and then I'm doing it again, inking it up, putting it kind of, I'm going to turn it actually, since there's like a little dip in it, and putting it kind of diagonal, and stamping again. Put my lid back on my Versamark here. And I'm going to dip it in my embossing powder. And if you dump embossing powder on yours and do it that way, by all means you can do it that way. You don't have to do it like I do. I'm going to dip this side. Give it a little tap there because I got some extra powder, it looks like. But it is a splatter. So it's kind of supposed to look like that. I also keep this a little tiny makeup brush. It's actually an old Lancome brush that I've had for a long time that I use to get the excess off. There's quite a bit of excess on this one. I have a bunch of gold right here. So I don't know if that's going to come off or not. But you know, a friend gave me a brush not long ago that said it's perfect for that. So I'm going to grab that brush. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. My friend Bev sent me these cute little brushes with a card not long ago and said that they are perfect for embossing powders, and they got this little tiny felt bit on the end. So I'm going to test this out and see how we do. And she is so right. Oh my goodness. The embossing powder just kind of comes right off there. So this is actually great to get in there and get all those little pieces. I'm going to have to ask her where she got them so I can clean this piece up really well. Now it doesn't matter as much with this one because it is splatter, but I do have a lot of excess in between my splatters. You probably can't see it on the camera, but I can see it. And this is working wonders to get it off of there. So I'm gonna have to ask her where she got it and then put a link down below this video. But this is working beautifully. I'm not sure why it got so muddled. There. I like that result much better. Hopefully yours isn't muddled like mine is. Not sure what happened. It didn't happen on the first card. But all right. Now that I got it how I want it, I'm going to heat emboss. So I'm going to heat up my heat tool for just a little bit and then emboss it. But I will fast forward through this part so you don't have to hear the heat tool the entire time. So here we go. All right, isn't that fun? That gold dots on there, very, very pretty. All right, so I'm gonna set this one aside, and now we're gonna do our flowers. So I'm gonna try this again, and hopefully it doesn't get all crazy on me. So I'm using my embossing buddy again, just to make sure we don't get stray powder everywhere like we did on that one. Not sure why that happened, but just like so. Now we're going to take the detailed flowers And the only thing is you want to make sure that you have your stamp going the same way as your flowers. I had to turn mine a little bit because you want them to line up perfectly. So going back to my Versamark here, I'm going to ink these up real well. And then line it up with my flowers the best that I can. It's kind of hard to do. There's that one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do it on this one at the same time. Like so. And then we're going to dip them in the powder again. Oh, that one was much better. The excess powder didn't stick around. So just making sure I got them all covered. There we go. No need to use my brush this time. Just got a little bit right there where my finger was. All right, again, gonna heat these up, melt my powder, and fast forward while I do it. And here we go. All right, look at those gorgeous flowers. I love embossing. It is the one thing that got me hooked many, many years ago, playing with the embossing powder. All right, let's get this out of the way. Okay, so back to our card. Now that we have gold on here, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the card base. So again, using my favorite glue here. Make sure I don't have my card upside down. Okay, I have done that many times, not fun. All right, so I'm gonna put that there, and the heat embossing did make it a little warped. So I'm just gonna use my hands here to flatten it out for a second while that glue adheres. There we go. So pretty. So pretty. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to cut our images out here. So you need to cut out the wishing, and we need to cut out both sets of our flowers. And you also need a piece of early espresso to cut out the tree limb right here. So this one, I did have it, I already did cut that one out. So you need one of these tree limbs. And then I am going to go cut out, I guess I should show you. This is the die that's going to cut out the flowers. So you just line those up. We're going to cut out all these flowers and cut out the wishing. I'm going to run them through my machine, and I will meet you back here and we'll finish putting this card together. Okay, so I got all mine cut out. All those flowers, fun, fun, fun. And my sentiment. Pop out the little G there. There we go. Okay, so we are going to put our tree limb on here first. And I'm going to grab my multi-purpose liquid glue for that. I suppose you could have used adhesive sheets, but I don't really like them that well. I have a hard time with them. So I stick with my multi-purpose liquid glue and just put little tiny bits here and there. And I get kind of quiet as I do it because I have to concentrate. So sorry about that part. There we go. Okay, so I have it all the way over, oops, to my left edge here. And I'm just setting it down in the middle of all that purple. There we go. And then for all of our little flowers, those are all going to go on with dimensionals. So it's easier to use the mini dimensionals. I'm going to start by putting them on my larger pieces first. Now we're not going to use all of these flowers either, so there are going to be some that are left over. So I'm just putting the little minis in the center of each of the flowers here, of the ones that there's 3 flowers on. So I'm just starting with those. I'm going to peel these backs off. We're going to decorate our tree limb. All right, so the one with the 3 flowers, I actually turned it upside down and I put it on this little tree limb here. Like so. So you can see a little of the tree limb here and a little tree limb there. And then the next little 3 set of flowers, it's going to go on the other end. Kind of the same way. You're going to see some of the tree limbs sticking out. So you see a little here and a little up there. All right, now I just get to pick and choose which ones I want. Some of them turned out a little better because I think the die moved a little bit. So I'm gonna take a big one. And I suppose it really doesn't matter how you decorate your tree limb here. That one is going to go probably about right there. I got to leave room for my sentiment. And I need a small one. Hopefully a little dot will fit on there. Oh, it does perfectly. Well, maybe not. I think it put it in the wrong spot. And now it doesn't want to come off. It's going to stay there. Hopefully you can't see it from the front. There we go. This one's going to go on the end of my tree limb. And then this one. I'll put it right here. Put it over a little bit. Right there. And which one do I like better? I suppose that one will work. Oh, it's gotta be a big one. All right. I'm kind of talking to myself here. Probably overthinking it. Just stick them on there and be done with it. All right, so this one, I'm just gonna turn it so they all kind of fit on there. So I'm going to have 3 little flowers left over. You can use that on another card. Or if you can fit them all on yours, you can do that as well. That one's going to go right there. So there's all my flowers. So now for the wishing, because this one is actually going to get dimensionals as well. But for that, I'm going to have to cut them because the little dimensionals will not fit on there because they're too big. So that's what all these little cuts down here are for. Because you get this extra strip all the way around them. So I'm just going to make small little snips here. And these are the little pieces that I'm going to use to put my sentiment on. I'm just making them very, very thin. don't know how many you need. I was just cutting a bunch off at the same time. So they actually pull off all together, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to put them on the back of the longer pieces. So definitely one there. So wherever you think you need to put these little guys, I'm just randomly placing them on parts that I know is long enough to hold my little dimensional. So I need something there and maybe something up there. So I'll take one more little strip. But the strip's going to be too long, so I'm going to cut it again. So this is the teeny tiny little dimensional. One there. And then one there. Now you got to peel all those little backs off. It's probably the harder part. I know some people use their, take your tool or your paper snips there. I just use my fingernail. I think that one's off, yep. All right, got those all taken care of. So then I'm gonna put my wishing on here and I'm gonna have that H go right across that tree limb. Just wanna make sure I got it straight. There we go. And press it into place. All right, so now we got to do the sentiment. The sentiment is going to be on a piece of Highland Heather, and it says "You well," and we're going to stamp that in Gorgeous Grape. I'll need those. All right, so inking that up real well. There we go, tiny little "You well." Now to cut that one out, I'm going to use this very long die right here, but I don't need all this space on there, and I want my ends to have that fancy little bevel, so I am going to shorten this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up something like that, so where it's kind of close to the word. I'm going to take a piece of removable tape. I'm going to put it right over that so I know it won't move. Oh, maybe I won't put it right there. I'll move it down a little bit. Right there. So that's where I want my label to be. Now I'm going to grab my little mini cutter here. My little mini Stampin' and Emboss. I usually take it off camera and do it because it's easier for me, but I want you to see how I'm doing this. So we're going to run this through our little machine. Like so. Remove our tape. Don't need this piece anymore. So now we have this very long label. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my sentiment down to about the same equal spacing as I had the other side. So about right there. And there's a little groove. You can feel it kind of slide back into where the cutout is. I'm going to take my tape and put it right across there so it stays in place. And then I'm going to run it through again like that. And then what you have is a tiny little sentiment, just like that. So we shortened it. So that's how you shorten the sentiment. And then now we have to adhere it to our card, and I'm going to do that with dimensionals again. So I'm going to flip that little thing over and add some mini dimensionals to the back. I'm going to use 3 of them. So I'll put 1 on each end and then 1 in the middle. There we go. Peel off those backs there. And then this will just fit right in here under the wishing part. Wishing you well. And then to complete it, we're going to put some iridescent foil gems on the card. So I'm just going to use, there's 2 different sizes on here, but I'm just going to use 3 of the smaller ones. So pick up the smaller ones here. I'm going to put 1 up here, kind of 1 over here, and then I'm going to complete a triangle with my embellishments. So I'll put 1 right over there, a little triangle. And that is it for this gorgeous Wishing You Well card. If you have any questions about it or get stuck along the way, feel free to leave a comment below. And if you could do me a favor and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.